All right, let's go now to Tom O'Connor, who is a senior foreign policy writer and joins me now live from New York. Tom, as we know, Kiev and the West widely consider these referendums a sham. What kind of response do you think we'll likely see from there in the U.S. to the results of these referendums, and when will we likely hear a response?
Well, I'm already in touch right now with the State Department looking to see if we can get some early responses. We are seeing the preliminary results of these votes, which aren't surprising, of course, saying overwhelmingly in favor of being annexed by Russia in all four regions. I think that the immediate response may have something to do with sanctions. Perhaps any officials deemed to have been involved in these referendums. At the same time, I'm not really sure how much more Russia can be sanctioned. I think that's part of the issue here is that the amount of sanctions already on Russia really insulated already from further economic measures. So whether there's going to be any sort of battlefield measures is something that I think that'll be interesting, and it really depends on what Ukraine wants. They are seeking to take these regions back by force, of course, as part of the ongoing conflict and the ongoing counteroffensives. But what they'll actually be able to get more from the U.S., I think, still remains uncertain.
What do you think the large implications of these referendums are with Russia preparing to annex more Ukrainian territory?
Well, I think first and foremost, these are the parts of Ukraine that we always thought were at greatest risk of being taken by Russia, both as part of the military operation and perhaps part of a formal annexation, as we're likely to see. Because also, I think of the cultural, linguistic links they have to Russia, and also, of course, geographical, being right next to the Russian borders, and also connecting across the Black Sea to Crimea as well. At the same time, I think that the broader implications have a lot to do with the context of the conflict itself. We've heard Russian officials talk about nuclear doctrine and defending Russian territory. If these parts of Ukraine become Russian territory, even if just in the eyes of Russia, then the Russian nuclear doctrine can be applied to them. And I think it's something that they're very eager to warn the West about, given the ongoing conflict and the actual course of it right now. So it's something that they want Western, not just officials, but publics to see, citizens to say, are we really willing to risk a nuclear war over these four territories, or perhaps all of Ukraine?
Do you think those threats are real, though? I mean, do you think this marks a dangerous new phase in the war with Russia not only making these threats of nuclear weapons, but drafting more troops into the war?
Well, I certainly would take these threats seriously. I think that Russians do not take them lightly either. I think that, we have to remember it's next month will be the 60th anniversary of the Cuban Missile Crisis. Many officials, former officials, experts I've spoken with over the course of the conflict, and especially now, say we might be at the most dangerous nuclear moment now since then. And at the same time, though, we also have to remember that since World War II, that one norm has not been broken, which is the use of nuclear weapons, since the U.S. was the first and only country to ever use atomic warfare in combat. I think this is something that Russians take seriously, that I hope the West also takes seriously as well. As to actually the next steps, whether those steps are ever taken in the course of nuclear conflict, I don't think we're there yet, but I think it's certainly something that we should keep an eye on, and something we have to remember as part of the messaging of this conflict, trying to dissuade the West from further supporting Ukraine and pouring fire on this conflict. I think that's the Russian message here.
What about efforts to negotiate some kind of ceasefire or peace deal between Russia and Ukraine? Of course, nothing has worked so far, but do you think that those efforts are just dead at this point?
Well, at the moment, right now, both sides don't seem particularly interested in that. I think it's something that deserves more attention. Even if it does seem fruitless, there's only one way conflicts usually end between states, no matter how bad they get, which is with some sort of diplomatic settlement. I think that it's in everyone's interest to see some sort of end to the conflict. Perhaps in an ironic twist, these referendums could serve as some sort of slowing point for the conflict. I'm sure it's not something that Ukraine would want, and I think that Russia still isn't seeing any immediate desire for peace either. But if both sides can come together and say, at least maybe we can establish some sort of ceasefire to figure out where the other side stands, I think it's something that would still be in the interest of not just, of course, the countries themselves, but their peoples who are still suffering.
All right, Tom O'Connor joining us from New York. Thank you, Tom.
Thank you.